Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond BMR. Of course, I'm your host, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, as most people know me as BMR. Joining me tonight in Studio B from Missouri, the lovely Krista from the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Please subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze on YouTube if not already. Please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube if you're new. Texas Front Porch if you're new. This is the show where we talk about just about everything in this strange world we live in. Tonight's guest, great friend of mine, multi-time guest on the show, Will Lunsford, talking Bigfoot, and of course, the Fouke Monster. If this is your first time here, like I said, please subscribe, check us out, like, share, turn on your alert bell. You're going to find us at iHeartRadio, Spreaker, wherever podcasts are found. If you like what we do around here, the super chat's open. Also, you can become a BMR pirate today. Join up. That's right. You can join. You become a member. What you get is a bandana, a picture of me with my bandana on, next to your name in the chat room. Again, check us out on YouTube across the board for all of our scheduled events that we have going on. On Mondays is, of course, Texas Front Porch, 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Mondays. That's Eastern Standard Time. Tuesdays, Beyond BMR with myself and Krista, 9 o'clock in the East. Right back here on Thursdays, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob at 1 o'clock in the East. Followed up later on Thursday, 9 in the East, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. And Monica Rollins, Our Paranormal World, on her channel. Subscribe if not already, 11 o'clock in the East. Friday, back with Little Blondes, a Little Woo, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, 8 o'clock in the East Friday. Saturday night, that's right, myself, Krista, Brandy, and Monica, late night on Saturday. That's at midnight, 11 Central. Check that out. Sunday, Truth or Tinfoil, with Brandy and Randy at 6 in the East. And, of course, Tax Infamous Minds at 7 in the East. That's a true crime. A series that he has going on. So checking that out. Thanks to everybody for coming in. We do have a great show. And before I get started, I've got to thank everybody for, once again, my second book is out. Bigfoot Michigan Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 2, now found on Amazon. I released it last Monday. So thank you for not only buying Book 1, but now Book 2 is hit. It's hit the stores. It's hit Amazon. The link is pinned in this. You can also find the link on my YouTube page, and all you need to do is type in Bigfoot Michigan Rob on your Amazon browser, and both books will pull up. And speaking of books, with my buddy backstage, Will Lunsford, this book, you guys, is fantastic. I'm starting my second read on it. Will Lunsford, Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. We've talked about this book several months ago on the show, and it's a fascinating book. It's really all of up to current today, 2024, a lot of Will's hard work and research. It's a great read. It's a fantastic read. The link for that also will be pinned in this chat. So, again, congratulations to Will Lunsford for a fantastic book. Fantastic. With that being said, I'm going to bring up Krista.
Hey.
What's up? How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm here.
I know you've got walking pneumonia, my lord.
I do.
You know.
I do. But I'll survive.
Well, I love you. You're a trooper. Thanks for joining. And I know when William was the guest, you could have had the day off, but you said, no, William's coming on. I'm not going anywhere.
And I really like Will and Cindy both. So, yeah.
They're much more. They're great people. The rescue missions with animals is a fantastic part of what they do. outside of his
Absolutely.
research. He's an
Yep.
author, a researcher. He is an advocate for the care of animals, and
Mhm.
he's just an all-around great guy. And you had the pleasure of meeting those guys in person.
Will actually took us to his research area and all that good stuff down there in Fouke.
Yeah, well, I know
Brilliant.
he's probably, and he also, well, I won't get into that. I know he's probably blushing backstage. I'm gonna bring up my buddy William,
Hello, hello. Oh,
and you
he's
put your, yeah, there you go,
on.
William. You're on mute.
Yeah, there
There
we
you
go.
go.
I hit it and hit it hard. Hello, everybody from Arkansas. You are looking at a man who's been so excited to be back with y'all, and just couldn't wait for it to get here to get all the things lined up and squared up so that I could get to be back with you. This has been a summer that, as good as my wife is, and thank y'all for the good words you gave
And
her.
you have a good one. Let me tell you, you have a good one.
She put being a Bigfoot researcher's wife is not easy, and
No.
and she actually goes with me. And boy, she's a good one too.
Yep.
But every now and then, you kind of just have to say, "Hey, it's your turn. We'll do what you want to do." So we went to Florida not too long ago. She wanted to go to the beach, so we went to the beach there, and
Very
then
cool.
it's going to be very soon. Here, we're going to be going to Greece, and
Wow.
I told her, I said, Cindy, I said, baby, if you want to go to Greece, I said, go out there and thaw out some of them deer steaks and those crappie fillets. You can go to that Greece any many times you want to. But
Well, you know, William. Hey, William, man, you're going to Greece, and who does not say that Bigfoot research does not pay, my man?
Well, I tell you what, it's really nice. I don't know how much, maybe $1.50. That's going to be funded through Bigfoot
Right?
Research.
Yeah,
But,
I know. You know, I'm
that's
just
where we get a lot
I'm
of
being
our mythology.
facetious. But
Oh yeah, but I believe it or not, and then we're all good friends and good jokers. Y'all can say anything to me, and we can joke back. But I've actually looked up to see whether there's Bigfoot in Greece, and there's big Greece is where we get so much of our mythology. You look at all these animals that come through there. So as you know, I tend to think that that mythology tends to imitate real life rather than than the other way around, because it's something that's actually there. And so I'm very excited about that right there, to get to go through there and do that right there. And so again, I've got a thing coming up here pretty soon. I've got down here in Louisiana, I've got the Louisiana Bigfoot Festival, also Bigfoot Film Festival, again, that's put on by one of my good friends, Brian Horn. Very excited about that. Going to be there. Several good speakers, men that I love and respect, and have so looking forward to doing that with them as well. And then of course this group that we've got around here, we got we got Daniel Becker, we've got Keith Crabtree, we've got Randy Crawford, we've got Shannon Cruz, got Jim, Jim Owenby, again, my wife and all. Like I said, our whole purpose in doing this, it's fun. Our whole purpose in doing this is to bring the fact, the awareness that Bigfoot is real. And Stephen Hill, the hell I was going to save him for the last to say with this, because Stephen has Bigfoot on his property, as does my friend Shannon. And so Shannon has had him coming up for the last 2 or 3 weeks, coming up behind his house every night and doing the screaming. And so he's finally got him a new voice activated recorder. And so me and Stephen's been really working really hard there and through the summertime there. And of course he has children, unlike myself. So I have more free time than he does. But boy, when I do have free time, I have Stephen as a friend researcher. Gosh, man, he just adds so much. And again, Randy too, Randy Crawford, he's got grandbabies now and things like that. And Randy's boy, just a computer genius. And what can you say about, these other guys? Again, like I said, Keith, who knows more about the Fouke Monster than Keith Crabtree?
Right.
He drove the car in the movie, The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Right.
He's the real legend of Boggy Creek.
And Will, we're gonna get on with this, because I
Go
can
ahead,
tell
Will.
right now you are just ready to roll. I'm excited. You're excited. Chris is excited. I can tell the audience is excited already. 70 people in chat already. Before we get started, a shout out.
Okay.
And I just found this out today. And another guy who's you're friends with, Duke Sullivan.
Oh yeah.
World Bigfoot Radio or World Bigfoot Central. I was talking to him earlier today. And for everybody listening, and William, I don't know if you know this, and I did not know this until Duke gave me a call today. He's on YouTube again with World Bigfoot Central and World Bigfoot Radio. he's got a show on Rumble, and the other night during his show, he read some excerpts from your book, which I showed the book earlier, which we'll talk
Right.
a little about. So he read that on the show. We got a wild response.
Thank you,
And
Gary.
he also read
Thanks.
a couple stories from my book 1. So
Cool.
shout out to Duke for giving us some props, giving us some love,
Very
doing
cool.
his marketing for us. So in return to Duke, subscribe to Duke, World Bigfoot Radio, World Bigfoot Central. Thank you, Duke, for that. Who's a wealth of knowledge, and Duke will be on, I think, in the fall. Well, he doesn't know it yet, but he's going to be on in the fall. Don't know what show yet, and we're going to talk some mountain giants. So look out for that one coming soon. Thank you to Gary Spike Sr. 5 more Bigfoot, Michigan, Raw Pirates. Arr, thanks, Gary.
Good guys, great guys, junior and senior, man. I've been around both of them, been in the woods around them and with them, and just as good as there is out there.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Also, what people don't know too is I know you had messaged me about the conference that we're doing next year, and we had asked you to be a speaker as well. So don't have an exact date. I had some things kind of come up, so I had to put that on the side. But we're getting back into it again, and you're right there on top.
Well, I appreciate that. I was going to say here, and I don't want to embarrass y'all, but all the shows that you read off there at the first of the beginning of the show here, folks, if y'all don't know how much effort these people here put into putting on not just one podcast, because we know that everybody has different, cryptid interests and stuff like that, but the effort that they put into it, not only to put out a show, but to put out a great show. And I'm not just saying that because they're here and sponsoring. They've done a lot for me, and I certainly appreciate it. But man, y'all put out a doggone good show. And whenever you listen, even if when you listen to it, you're bound to learn something. And and that's what these things are all about. I don't know as much. Of course, I don't have as much time to look around for some of the other stuff. We got Bigfoot and Dogman around here, and we got some other things. I tend to spend more time there. I'm 20 miles from the home of the Fouke Monster, and so that kind of will keep you going. And then we have a place called Ground Zero. But what you guys do, I thank you for it, and I wanted to give y'all a shout out for everything that y'all do for the other folks, the other kind of shows that you have there. And your book, Rob, your book was outstanding. I appreciated that, man. When you read these stories, folks, when you read Rob's book, it's being told straight from the horse's mouth. It's not Rob telling you this and telling you how he interprets this right here. It's right there verbatim from the way that the folks sent it to him. And you can almost, even though you don't have the visual, you have a few pictures in there, you don't have the visual, you can feel the tears and the quivering in the people's voice when they're telling the story. So, man, you get a chance to read some of these things. It's Rob's book and book 2. He's ahead of me. I had another book started there, and then the things that went on here. Actually, I had a dog get snake bit not too long ago, so that was about 3 weeks worth of mental agony. But we're getting back there, so I'm trying to catch back up with Rob. But mine's nowhere ready to be in print yet. But
well, I'll be looking forward to that. I've read book 1 once. I read your first book once. I always it's actually right here, and I thumbed through it because for me, you got to read a book twice because yours is it's packed of it's really packed with great information. And I was going to tell you something before we really get started on the meat of the show. You've been on like 5 times. Duke's been on about 4 times. There's a few others. I don't have a lot of repeat guests, but the ones I do are friends of mine that will bring something to the show, right?
Yeah.
And I remember Duke told me, hey, get a hold of this William Lunsford guy. Hey, I did not know who you were. And I had maybe William about 200 subscribers. And I hear some background noise. I don't know if that's anybody's speakers, but regardless. So, dude, I had like 200 subscribers on the very first show. Now we're up over 4,500 subscribers.
Right.
And Will, I got to tell you, you're a big part of that because every time you're on a show, I pick up a handful. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, folks, hey, thank you for saying that because I do. I appreciate everybody that spends the time here with us. They can spend any time they want to doing anything they want to. And what they spend with us is very much appreciated. I don't take it for granted. Again, and through that background right there also for our daggum service people and the ones who paid all, our veterans and all our first responders. Because I appreciate them too. So again, it's not somebody blowing smoke in your ear. You can tell I really do appreciate that. And so thank y'all for being here, and I appreciate you saying that. I try to give you everything I got. I don't hold anything back. That's one thing about my book. I didn't hold any secrets, you know, and anything else like that. And that's the same way book 2 is going to be. Book 2 is actually going to have a whole lot more pictures and a lot less, not a lot less dialogue, but a lot of dialogue less. But folks, I appreciate y'all being there. Appreciate you saying that, and y'all having me on here because, man, as you told me a while ago, hey, I've got 5 or 6 more hours to talk Bigfoot tonight if y'all want to.
Yeah,
So,
man, we're always willing and ready and able, and we will get on with it. And as I said, the channel's grown since the very first time you're on. So really briefly, there might be some people, believe it or not, that don't know you, Will. If you want to walk us through how you got started, and we can just move on with it.
all right, I'd be glad to. Thank you. Yeah, man, I got started here back when I was in the 7th grade. The story came along of a quote monster that was seen around Fouke, Arkansas. Fouke at that time, golly, wasn't even 200 and something other people. Mm-hmm. And so there was a monster that was going around some people's houses there. They were a young married couple. They'd lived there only a week, and the monster was sticking his hand through the window, and he was running in front of cars there on Highway 71. And so I had lived in the place in the country there where we had heard some howling, but we didn't know what it was. I had actually seen a couple of babies there on the river with my dad. My dad was an amateur boat builder. So, but then after I got where I was bigger and quote smarter, unquote, I just kind of dismissed all that. Well, one day I was fishing at some gravel pits there, and that's my other favorite hobby besides Bigfoot and bass fishing. And I was probably a mile and a quarter, mile and a half away from my vehicle. Had walked down there, and the week before this happened, my very first sighting, I had something pace me through the edge of this gas line wherever I was down there fishing at, and it really got after me. And whenever I would stop, and I thought it was some of my buddies messing with me because they knew where I was, and so and then I hollered, "Hey, I know you're over there. You ain't scaring me," and all this stuff like this. Well, I just kind of dismissed it. Well, then I started back up to walking back down to where my vehicle was. Sure enough, this thing catches up to me. And I stopped, and boy, you hear 1 or 2 more extra steps there, then it stopped, and I'm like, yeah, they're still messing with me. So anyway, I just tried not to pay any attention. But when I got started again, it's pretty soon it caught up to me. And when it did, I thought, well, I'll just show them. I'm gonna start jogging a little bit. So I start jogging down this gas line, and whenever I do, all of a sudden you hear boom, 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 boom over there in them woods, crashing through the woods. And I knew whatever it was then was paying me some attention. So I took off heading back to where my vehicle was, right to where I get into the woods, right there to take the road, the trail that I have to take where I cross the creek there, a little forward there in some rocks. This thing screams at me. And man, it wasn't one of these little screams like you hear, and this was one of those. Oh my gosh, whatever. Man, even now it even brings tears to my eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? So I take off running. I cross the creek. I get back to my vehicle. I don't see anything. And I thought, oh man, you're so lucky. You dodged a bullet here. So I sit there, and I wasn't old enough to buy a gun, but I went that night and bought me a Bowie knife. And I thought, I'll fix this sucker next time I'm down here. So about a week and a half later, I'm back down there again. And I had smelled something really horrible that first day there. But then there was a lot of roadkill or I guess field kill there where the animals would eat. So I was back doing the same thing. I pick up this same bad smell. So I'm going down there, and I've got just a couple hours. I'm in a hurry to fish my favorite pits and then get back home. So as I'm going down there across this gas line, up a place, that we call the crossroads over there. And so I get down there, and something stops me. I mean, it's like a sixth sense to where all of a sudden something's not right. And, people say, oh, that's crazy. No, it's not crazy. You can tell when you got something on your neck that's vibrating you like that right there. You've got the feeling that you're being watched, and you know when something's right and not, especially the number of times that I had been down there to where this place was. Anyway, I'm like, boy, you're just letting what happened to you last week kind of get the best of you and your imagination. So I start crossing the gas line. I stop one more time. I'm like, nah, you've got just a little bit of time to go. Whenever I do, I look over to the left, and there's a shadow on the left side of this road. Well, this shadow begins to move, and then it stands up, and it's back there behind some bushes and some limbs hanging down. It had used its left hand. It had pulled the bush down. It was in front of its face. It starts putting the limb up like that, and then the limb gets to where it's supposed to be. This thing keeps standing up. So by the time it gets through standing up, it's probably 7.5, 8 foot tall. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, what is that? Your first instinct is bear. We've got bears down here. Then you're thinking, oh, no. And I knew it wasn't anybody messing with me, in a suit or anything else like that. Then the next thing you think, is, can that be a sloth? Well, Arkansas doesn't have sloths. And you try to run the whole gamut to what it is. And there's nothing else it could be. I'd never seen the Fouke Monster before, but I knew right then wherever it was. And so he walks out there in front of me, kind of teeters like this for a little bit. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is how I'm going to die. And so a little bit later, then he walks back to his original spot. He walks back out in the woods again. I mean, into the woods, comes back out of the woods, and he's sitting there and he's teetering again. And I'm like, well, this is it right here, you know, and just, man, I'll be honest with you, I was praying, Lord, you know, just let him find my body, you know, take care of my mama, you know, and if you don't help me, just don't help him. Well, anyway, as he sit there and just staring at me, eyes just black as coal, just like I'm staring at y'all right now, then he went to move, and he took that step with his right foot, like what he was going to come towards me, but he wheeled on that left foot, took 2 steps, and the 3rd step, he's in the woods. I couldn't see. I couldn't hear him, but I wasn't thinking straight. I wanted to run, but I couldn't run, guys. I mean, truly, I wanted to run as fast as I've ever run. And I was a good miler. I could do a full 45 miles as a senior in high school. That's 1977. And so finally, I kind of started getting my wits about me, started getting my thoughts. And I thought, boy, if you're going to go somewhere, you better go. So I took off. There were some gravel pits. I thought about diving into one of them and swimming underwater to try to get away, but thank goodness I didn't have to. But anyway, whenever I got back, long story short, back there to my vehicle, I threw my tackle over the gate, dove through the gate, got into my vehicle, went to take off, and whenever I did, my fishing tackle was still outside. So anyway, I just sit there and thought, what do I do? What do I do? I looked around, and that was the best rod and reel I ever had. I was a poor kid. So anyway, I pulled up there and got that real nice rod and reel, got my tackle, got my knife. I showed that Bigfoot my knife, and I'm sure he's still laughing about that even today from 47 years ago. But anyway, I got my fishing tackle, and then I left, went to Texarkana, told my mom about it. And so first she kind of smiled, and she goes, boy, what's wrong with you? And I said, Mom, you're not going to believe me. She goes, what? And I said, I saw the Fouke Monster. And she kind of chuckled a little bit, which would be, I mean, that would be anybody's response, the Fouke Monster, because I'm a big joker. I'm a big hitter. And she said, you saw the Fouke Monster? I said, Mama, I saw the Fouke Monster. Boy, she knew right then, by the consternation in my voice and everything like that. And she goes, son, I believe you. She goes, I tell her more about it. She goes, well, I just don't believe I'd tell a whole lot of people if I was you. But again, you don't listen because you want to unburden yourself. You've got something here that's happened to you that to me was my earth was shattered. It was earth shattering. It was changing. It was something that's not supposed to exist, but it does. And you're wanting to tell somebody. So I told my best friend, told my coach, and I told one other person, and they laughed the same way. Not a deal of making fun, but it's just so incredible. So I just quit telling people, just like what my mama said. Well, mama's advice is always good. And so I did. And so I kept it quiet for a long, long time. And then finally, some of the advancements came along here with some of the shows, the different books and things like that. And so I was able then to start talking about it. And so whenever I did, then it kind of unburdened me a little bit. But I had been researching the whole time. I had seen several more from them because I didn't ever go to the same place again. Haven't been there by myself in 47 years, but I was down there very, very close. And so I would be down there, and I had actually seen a couple more. So I knew that my territory and theirs overlapped. So I really studied really hard after that. There wasn't much in 1977. You had the card catalog of your local library, and that was just about it.
Right.
You didn't have Finding Bigfoot. You didn't have the other shows that are on there right now. You didn't have a whole variety of things, but what you did have some pretty good articles by then. So I started really studying and researching. And after I saw more of them, I'm like, by gosh, I'm going to learn more, because if his territory and mine overlap, then I'm fixing to have some control over when I get to see him too. So I did, and very, very fortunate. And my second actual sighting was in 1985. Had my 7-year-old nephew or 8-year-old nephew with me. Gosh, man, that was scary. People say, what's your most scary sighting? Hey, when you've got your family with you, because that changes the whole dynamic, because you don't know how it's going to end. You just know who's going to be in it. And that's kind of a sobering thought too. I might have been thought I was bad when I was 17 when I saw my first one. Then back there when in 1985 and saw my second one, I was a little bit more mature as far as that goes. But after that right there, so that changed, and that's how I got started doing this. And folks, the more I saw, the more I became, I'm not obsessed, but enthralled with it. You would see these creatures. I've actually seen babies. Got pictures of several babies, because I've showed y'all here when we sit here, Krista, on our back porch there. I passed my phone around. It was like I had pictures of grandkids instead of Bigfoot, passing around.
You will. I mean, when I had my Bigfoot encounter, there was no way in hell when I saw my Bigfoot that I was telling anybody. Now, my experience is a little bit different. But I got to ask you, and I don't think I've ever asked you this question because and all the times I've spoken with you, I don't ever think I asked you this question because every time we talk, you've had an experience or had a
Mhm.
sighting. Why do you think there's many people, Will, that go out in the field, they don't capture anything, 20, 30-year veterans. You always seem, now not 100%, I get it, but your percentage of coming across these cryptids, Bigfoots, seems pretty high. You have a very good success
Mhm.
rate with coming across some sort of evidence or sighting. What do you attribute that to?
Well, as I said a while ago, first it has a lot to do with the people I surround myself with. They're not judgmental. They're very very good people. They're very smart men. My wife is very very good, so that has a lot to do with that. Then also, I think every person, you can look it up. Every person has some kind of quote magnetism unquote.
Mhm.
And I learned that being a UPS man of 35 years. I know how the dogs, people say, man, these dogs hate everybody. How do you make friends with these dogs? And so I realized then that whatever my aura was probably one of, hey, I'm not going to hurt you. So I carried, I mean, every day I'd spend an extra dollar getting a whole box of dog biscuits. They'd be gone by the end of the day. But I think it's because they know I'm not going to hurt them. Y'all seen some
Mhm.
pictures there that I have there where I've actually got a 45-70 rifle. I'm 35, 45 feet away from a Bigfoot sitting there looking at me, and he's not the least bit concerned. And I think that's because they know that I don't have any intention of hurting them guys. And
Right.
and then too, I cheat. I have my game cameras out, and I take little Snickers bars and put them there, and hide them in front of my cameras. And so they'll come along and they'll get those Snickers bars, and they've got a sweet tooth about like I do. I think that has a lot to do with it. But then too, I truly believe that they have some kind of way of understanding that this guy's not about hurting us. This guy's
Right.
more about bringing a different perspective to this. So I really believe that makes a lot of
Mhm.
difference. I've got some great areas. I've got the Sulphur River bottoms here. There have been so in Texas, you can read more Bigfoot sightings along Sulphur River bottoms. Earlier now, there's more getting down there, around Sabine River, the Sabine thing, and down around Sam Rayburn Reservoir and Toledo Bend Reservoir. But with that right there being my first area right there, and then the ones that Steve and I have found up there at a place called Ground Zero. My second book is called Searching for the Unfindable, Finding the Impossible. And it's basically based on how we found this one area here where truly, and I'm being as honest with everybody as I can be, we truly have an expectation of having a sighting every time we go, or some kind
Wow.
of encounter every time we go. Now I
Wow.
train my eyes too, Rob, as far as that goes, to look
Mhm.
for, everybody looks for Bigfoot just standing out there in the field. No, you're
Right.
looking for a
I like that.
piece. Yeah, you're looking for a piece of Bigfoot. You're looking for the glint of an eye. You're looking for maybe the sun
Yeah.
shining off the hair. You're looking at something other that's this way in a world that's mostly this way, world of trees. You're seeing
Mhm.
something there crossways. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. But again, I'm
Yeah.
very, very fortunate, and then to have that kind of I'm not going to say relationship, but that kind of aura that where they realize I'm not going to hurt them. And the good Lord helps a lot too, because
Well, you
I would
also,
love, go ahead, girl. I'm
I
sorry.
was just going to say, like, you know, I've been to your area and I've seen like brushes thick too. So you have to have been trained yourself to look
Right.
for like that little glint in the eye and things like that. So over the years, I think that's helped you, as you've been doing this, because I mean, like down there in Fouke, 3 feet in, you can't, you could be
That's
standing right
right.
next to you. You don't even see it.
That's right. And it has, and that's one way that I have done that. I'm also a deer hunter and ambassadorsman, and those have helped a lot too, as far as my animal instincts and knowledge. But when you're a deer hunter, and I don't kill everything I see. I'm not one of these kind
Yeah.
of guys. That's just not that important. But the ones I've observed, you watch them buggers come to the edge of a field or something like that. They stand perfectly still. They stand on the edge of that field 10 to 15 minutes or more, just looking at that field, just seeing for movement, sniffing the air and things like that right there.
Mm.
And so I learned that from them as far as for, being patient. And then Bigfoot does the same thing. They've actually sit there. We've gotten several pictures there. Some of the ones that Daniel has sent you, some of the ones you've seen that my wife has gotten. And Bigfoot will sit there and stand right there just inside the wood line on the edge of the field. And because of their color and their protective color right into with the shadows and stuff, and they'll sit there and they've got you figured out before you ever knew you had yourself figured out. And so they know you're there. And I think once they sit there and they study on that, well, what's this guy? What's he going to do? What's he going to do? And so with hopefully I'm presenting I hate to use the word aura, but aura is good, presenting the aura, that I'm not going to hurt them. And so I think that makes a lot of difference. So, and Arkansas has got a lot of Bigfoot, not just the Fouke Monster, but it's got a lot of Bigfoot. I'm lucky. Texas got a lot of Bigfoot. Oklahoma, a lot of Bigfoot. Louisiana, boy, I'll tell you what, Louisiana's got those bios. You got the Rougarou, the Loup-Garou. You've actually got the Southern Sasquatch. You've got the skunk ape that's migrated over from Florida. So there's a bunch of them down here to be able to have some study with. So again, I'm very, very fortunate with that area right there. And it's not because I'm the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I guarantee I've told y'all before, I may not be the best, but there's not anybody that's going to outwork me doing what I do, trying to do Bigfoot research.
Well, and the way you present yourself, I mean, we talk about this a lot, especially in the last year, about intentions. Bigfoot knows what you're all about before you step out of your vehicle to go into the woods. I believe that. But here's another thing that you brought up that was interesting that I've been thinking about for some time now. When someone makes the general blanket statement, Bigfoot's everywhere. Well, I disagree with that to an extent. I mean, the forest and the woods are vast. I mean, there are parts of this, there's literally millions upon millions of acreage that man has not even gone into.
Exactly.
But you made a good point, because I think when you were talking earlier, there are some areas where Bigfoot just don't roam. And you as a researcher could be in just a dry, lame area. Because for whatever the reason, there's no resources, or it's just they don't get the vibe that that's where they want to go. Maybe it's just a hunting grounds, and there's a million guys out there with a rifle during October, November, December, right?
Right, exactly.
So I think your location is key, despite that the forest is vast. Do you think there's any relevance to that?
Rob, I really do, and that's a good question. I really do, because if you read my book, one thing that I wrote in there, one thing to be a successful Bigfoot hunter is to be sure in an area that you have Bigfoot, because you can hunt all day long and there's not any there, and you just ain't going to see them. And you think, oh, shucks, no wonder, there's no such thing as Bigfoot. Oh no, go somewhere else and see. But go. Here's what I do. There's several websites you can go to, and they'll list as a kind of like a roster there, the different places where Bigfoot has been seen, the different states. They'll give you the closest highways, some of the closest towns, and you go in there, and I will go and I check them out once a month. Not that I'm going to sit there and go to somebody else's area, but I'd like to know when they start getting active in other areas, because I figure they're going to probably do the same thing here in mine. And so I'll sit there and I will look at those other reports that we have. And then if the folks are good enough here, contact me if you want to talk about it. And I contact them. I'm very, very fortunate to have people who share with me. I've had, the last 3 weeks, I've probably had 8 people that's contacted me with Bigfoot reports. Now, most of them this summer have been kind of strange. They haven't been sightings, but they've been things where they've been going up, knocking on their house, where they've been outside doing the howling and things like that, where they've been scaring their dogs. And we've had a lot of rain here. They've been kind of rooted out. Bigfoot's been kind of rooted out of its own home area as far as that goes. But they're still there making their presence known, like, hey, I'm still back here. Don't forget about me. So, but I think that has a lot to do with it there. So folks, the first thing you do, and if you have a chance, you can look on there and they'll list some of these places where they have a Bigfoot outing coming up, like some of these conferences that we got coming up. Go to these conferences, man. These people are a wealth of knowledge. They've been doing it just like I have, and and they're glad to share with you. And I've never left there without making it. Truly, any conference without making at least 10 friends, and that's the honest truth. And good people that you can, man. I've got them on my cell phone. They contact me, all the time, and I do them as well. They'll say, "Hey, Will, have you heard this? Here's a guy. Here's an example. I got a call 2 weeks ago from a man, and he said, Will, are you still living in the same place you lived in there in Texarkana?" And I'd only talked to him one time, just strictly by accident. And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I wanted to tell you something." He said, "A friend of mine saw a Bigfoot about a mile from your house not too long ago."
Wow.
Now, that's a different study for me, because if you hunt Bigfoot enough, you go to their house, they're going to follow you home. I believe that with all my heart. Wow. And so I thought, well, I knew there was one back here years ago. There's a place called McKinney Bayou right here where we live, and it's a big bayou that runs a long way. Well, thank you, Bigfoot Central. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to have to learn to study that. But then had a guy here that's working at my house this week. We're out there having our patio and stuff redone. He said, "You the Bigfoot guy?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult, but I'm him regardless." It's more of an insult to the Bigfoot, I think.
Well, don't you take that double look here? Are you the Bigfoot guy? It's like, who, me? Yeah, yeah.
Well, I gotta tell you, if he was working out in your backyard, how could he not know? Because Will has the coolest fence. He has Bigfoot in his fence. I kid you not.
Actually made the drawing and then had the guy cut it out and put it on our fence. And that's why I got a good wife. Most women say, "You ain't putting no Bigfoot out there on them fence," but not mine, So I've got 3 or 4 of them out there like that, the cutouts and stuff. But here's another cool thing about it. This guy that's working at my house, he said, "You're the Bigfoot guy." And I said, he goes, "Let me tell you what I saw this last week." And he fishes a little pond over here. It's less than a mile from my house. He goes, "I found about a 17-inch track, about 6 inches wide." He said, "It's a bare foot and it's got toes on the end." He said, "It's right there in the mud at the edge of the pond." And he said, "There's not another track, but you can see a trail where something has come out of the woods." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, there's more to this story than meets the eye." I knew the guy wasn't lying to me, but I was just kind of hoping among hope. Golly, I hope he don't come around my house. Well, now I'm fixing to have to do some research and going to, and that's going to make things different. I've got dogs out there. I don't want him to come up here harassing my dogs or anything else like that. But hopefully I'll have the same effect on him that I do the rest of them. He's like, "Man, I don't want to hurt Will's dogs." These are his buddies and then I'm his. So it's funny how that works out. But being able to have the good people that, Rob, like you said, that call me and let me know, "Hey, this is going on." And boy, I appreciate that. Just like I do all the folks that we got here, tonight that are watching to it.
Yeah. And for everybody watching really quickly, because I know I did this earlier. Now we got way more people in chat room. Almost 100 people are coming on in to see you. Well, they love you.
I appreciate that. Folks, when I tell you that, I mean it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. When I tell you something, I'm a straight shooter. You know that. Will's book, Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot, William Lunsford. You can find that pretty much wherever books are sold. I'll have the link for this for everybody. So thanks. Again, a fantastic book. I got the book. Will signed a copy and mailed me a copy.
Yep.
And I know Krista's got it and read it. And we've talked about your book in the past shows. And so with your second book coming out, what's to be different about it?
Well, the first kind of chronicles everything up until about last year. And more of a generic term. I go into a few specifics, but mostly along generic terms. But this right here, my specific purpose, the name was suggested by Duke Sullivan because I was looking, Rob around a couple by you and still hadn't made up my mind. And Duke said, "Well, here, I've got a name for your book." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And he said, "Well, you can keep it in the same vein, searching for the unfindable." He said, "Searching for the unfindable, finding the impossible." And whenever he said that hit a note because when I tell you that Stephen and I have a place that we can go to and truly expect to have a Bigfoot sighting, I'm not pulling your leg. There's enough of them up there. I said, there's a breeding population up there. We got one female that follows us around up there. We see babies all the time.
Wow.
I carried Daniel Becker in there from Alaska. Daniel actually contacted me and he said, "I know you're telling the truth because as fast as you talk, nobody can lie that fast." So we had a big laugh, but he came down. And sure enough, when we get a chance to go down there, man, he said, "Oh gosh, this place is electrically charged. You could actually feel the vibration in your neck from either the vibing or whatever." Sure enough, we get 3 or 4 pictures that first day. One of them is probably the best picture anybody's ever going to see. The one he has of the big one that's sitting there, standing there in the tree. And you can see the face and you can see, looks like a little baby back there on the back of his neck, but you see a hand right here in the middle of that chest right there, and so that's one of those things right there that you just
you really do have some incredible pictures. You do. I've seen them, and you've got the one and only picture that I know that I've seen of a gugway.
Yep, I've got the gugway, and this gugway, folks, is not your friendly everyday Yogi Bear picnic basket stealing Bigfoot. This one is one that he's got more things on his mind, something with a lot more protein, like a 265-pound ex-UPS man there that he wants to eat. And so he actually ran up through the bottoms down there, probably a mile and a half from where we were, Krista.
Well, you showed Brandy and I that night. Yeah. You took Brandy and I showed us where the Gugaway was.
Yeah. Yeah, and he comes flying up there, and at first I'm thinking it's a hog. We got some really big hogs. We got some 600 and 700-pound hogs here in these bottoms around here. And y'all seen the show, maybe Hogzilla. There's a Hogzilla is a real thing too. So, it gets over 1,000 pounds. But where that thing was, I saw him running up, and I thought, man, that's a hog. So I was sitting there looking at him. I only had a 40 caliber Glock pistol, which wasn't going to do nothing, just scratch mosquito bites. And so I kept watching. All of a sudden, here comes this Gugway, and he's on all fours, and I'm like, that's a Bigfoot. So man, I'm not afraid to. Maybe I'm stupid, but I was going to charge that Bigfoot. That's not the first time I've done that to try to get a picture. All of a sudden, I see him and he slows down and he starts walking. He starts looking at me like this right here as he goes into the brush. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get that picture. So I ran over there about 40 yards sideways, started going in there to where I had last seen him. And I see a laying log there. And there is some roots there, like you can either call them octopus roots like this right here. And he's got his head right there, and he's trying to hide from him. But you can see the shoulders. The shoulders gave him away. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I realized then, because he had a snout, he kind of had some little ears there. This was not Bigfoot. And it wasn't Dogman. As you know, you've seen that we've got, Steve and I have pictures of Dogman. And Stephen took that picture right there with he and I standing right by each other. So he's not pulling my leg or anything else like that right there. And so really, go ahead, man.
Just really briefly, Will's been on like a half a dozen times. In my archives, if you guys watch some of the replays of the shows with Will, just go under my channel. This show, we don't have them, but we've got pictures if you want to check it out on past broadcasts for those asking Will about pictures. We just didn't do it for this show for whatever, which is fine, but there's plenty in the archives of the shows. Sorry, Will.
That's okay. And I appreciate that because, guys, I try not to put out blob squatches. We all have blobs. Sometimes Bigfoot just ain't going to let you get a good picture. One day I had dropped one of my trail cameras there off the tailgate of my truck. I bent down to pick it up, and I happened to be looking to the side. When I did, there was a Bigfoot. Evidently, he was watching me. He stood up there out of the brush and started watching me right there while I bent over and picked up my camera. So I got my camera ready on my cell phone, put it right there, and just as soon as I came up, click, and got a picture. And there he is right there, in the doggone middle of the field, but they're extremely smart. They pay a lot of attention to us, and a lot of times we don't even know they're there. So this right here was one of those things that Gugaway when I saw him. And finally, I got 3 pictures. 2 of them look to be the same. The first one where he's sitting there just sitting straight like that. The second picture I get of this Gugaway is where his head is turned back and he's looking towards his little hunting partner, evidently. Because I have a friend who's a Native American. I asked him about a Gugaway. He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Man, leave them things alone." So I didn't have the chance. He said he came after you. He said he was hunting you. And so, but you could see where the thing's heads turned around like that. And I'm like, oh gosh. Well, my buddy Randy Crawford wanted to go the next day, and I couldn't go because I had post-traumatic stress. I was actually scared to death because of what I had seen, because he was setting up on me, and I knew it. You can tell. So, and only had that 40 caliber Glock. Well, then my son bought me a 45-70 rifle and gave it to me that next night. And he said, "Here, this is for your Bigfoot hunting." And he said, "I don't want to be an orphan, or a half orphan," and just messing with me. So anyway, he gave it to me, and then so that 45-70 will shoot lengthwise to the buffalo. And so I took that down there with me, and we went down. We got about 60 or 70 pictures, and Randy's got 2 computer monitors on his desk. Put them side by side, compare them with the pictures he and I took and the pictures that I took right there. And it's right there. I mean, there's this quote snouted Bigfoot, whatever class he is right there. But he thinks he's going to get me, and I think he was too. But anyway, to have that picture of that Gugaway, thank you, man, Paul. I appreciate that, man. To have that picture of that Gugaway and you look at it, and like I said, you can compare those 2 pictures right there. And truly, man, I was scared to death, and because I had never dealt with that particular kind of Bigfoot before. Go ahead, Rob.
I got to ask you too, because we've never talked about this on a show ever. We've talked about a lot of things, and I'm interested. And I know Duke has a handful. I think Duke's first experience might have been a Gugway. I'm not putting words in Duke's mouth. But what the heck's a Gugway? I mean, we've got Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Okay, we get it. Is a Gugway something that's not even related? You think it's in the family tree? Is just some other cryptid that has nothing to do with Bigfoot?
This one had a lot of the same body size, the same body shape as what Bigfoot does. Like I said, the most telltale difference is the Gugway has a snout. It's like a snouted Bigfoot. It's
Right.
not Dogman. You can tell
Yeah,
the difference
yeah.
with that right there.
Yeah.
But you can see that there. But a Gugway most time always has 3 toes. Well, what's the most defining characteristic of the Fouke Monster? The Fouke Monster had 3 toes. You know, so you got to think, oh man, that gene is down here. They also are called face eaters or whistling bears. They've got a really, really bad attitude, and they communicate with each other by whistling. And of course, we get a lot of that down here, and I'm like, gosh, man, I've got to learn a whole lot more about this. So, but that's what it is, and it's got a bad attitude. They say the beast of LBL has been now, according to Duke, there they sent him a release there that the thing had been killed, and it was a Gugway. It was one that ate a family of 4 up there at the land between the lakes there in Kentucky, and so they got a really, really bad attitude. And like I said, I would
Most
not
people
hurt.
don't survive them. You're very lucky. Most people don't survive a Gugway. That's why I don't believe there's many pictures of them, because I mean there's nothing nice about a Gugway.
No, there's not. There's nothing nice about them. Like I said, their intent is to hurt you. You know, they say if you see Bigfoot, you know, just sit there and watch, and he's going to generally amble on his way. They say if you see Dogman, it's kind of, you know, iffy, 50-50. He might come get you, he might not. They say if you see Gugway, do whatever you can to kill him, because if he gets a chance, he's going to kill you. And I don't believe in shooting. I'm not going to try to shoot a Bigfoot. I didn't shoot. Me and Steven didn't take a shot at the Dogman. We've seen several other Dogmen up there. We got some pictures of other Dogmen as well. Didn't take a shot at them. I think they kind of get a bad rep because based on all the stuff that Gugway does, and they get blamed for it. But when you see a Gugway, if a Gugway comes towards me, I'm going to have a new Gugway skin rug there on my front porch next time y'all come down to visit. So
there you go.
Hopefully he ain't got a ex-UPS man skin on the front of his face where he did that either.
Right.
But I'm not going to give him the chance to find out, because they are, folks. It's not wanting to kill something. It's just these things truly are. They want to hurt you. And I took 3 of the quickest pictures you've ever seen in your life, and then I ran up the hill, and then I got out of there. So again, that's what Gugway is, and you can read about it. Or Gugway, the Indians had different ways to pronounce it. You can read about it there on the, you know, through Google or anything else like that, and you can learn more about it. But they are real, folks. They're just as real as what Bigfoot is, and it's what Dogman is.
And for those of you that do have questions for Will, because we'll take some questions towards the end of the show, just put it in caps, and me and Chris will do our best to.
Yeah, I've started several questions already.
Okay. Yeah,
I can't see chat with everybody, so if y'all do that, I'll appreciate that.
Well, the chat is rolling. The chat's rolling pretty good. 101 people in chat. Thanks everybody for coming on in, and also thank you so much. And I've been starting to do this every show. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. Love you guys. You help make this show possible. And for all you people out there that are watching and not in chat, whether in your car or watching on your TV, I thank you, because I'm going to look up the number right quick. Boom, 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 like I do. Okay, 100. Okay, well, you got 98 in chat, but it's fluctuating. Now it's 100.
Okay.
392 people listening right now.
Thank you.
And there's 100 in chat, so that's we got a nice showing so far for you.
Well, man, I appreciate that. Hey, folks, if you have questions or something other, because even though I can't see the chat, I try to come back a day or two after when this show gets posted, and I try to answer everybody, you know, in a personal way. And
I noticed that of all the people I've had on the show, there's a few other ones, but I tell you what, Will Lunsford answers all your questions in. He will go back on this show in 2 days when the chat posts, and he answers everybody's questions. So that's awesome, Will.
I appreciate that. I do. I feel like that's the least that your fans and your watchers and viewers deserve right there, is that kind of person. Even if you say, Will, I can't stand you, I wish he never had you back on here. I'm all good.
And then you know what I say to them? Thanks for the algorithm. You just help promote the show.
There you go.
Idiotic comment, you know? So, Will, for people that might not know, what was one of the scariest things you came across in the forest? But before we do that, really briefly, it's about the time of the show. I'd like to thank Gary Spike Sr. for gifting 5 Bigfoot Mr. Rob pirate memberships. You today can join the pirate membership. Hit the join button. Paranormal Paul, thank you for the awesome super chat. Again, donations are not expected, but always I'm grateful and appreciative of them. Thank you ever so much. More importantly, subscribe, like, share, subscribe, and the like button does wonders. Like. Thank you so much. So yeah, so Will, I know that you've had mostly friendly encounters. My encounter was not friendly. Can you come across anything? And I know what the story is going to be because I talk to you all the time. What was the thing that really said, man, you just were like, I don't know what I'm doing out here. This is terrifying.
Well, I'll tell you what. Of course, I've told y'all this, and I've had I had one there that I couldn't lay eyes on. This was about 2 years ago. He ran down the hill earlier in the week on me when I was there, and he was in the same brush top I was, and I could hear him moving around. I could actually see a glint of a fur every now and then, but he wasn't being aggressive. He was just more or less just being inquisitive. And, hey, Will's okay. I'm going back up the hill. But I come back the next week, and whatever it was ran down the same way, took the same trail, and he was not a happy camper. And he growled, he rumbled, he snapped limbs, stepped around, made sure. A lot of times when they're around, they'll step kind of lightly, but this was more of an intimidating type step. And so he's in there, and I can't get eyes on him. I'm trying my best, and he's doing his best to avoid me. And all of a sudden, I got that feeling like he's not acting like a normal Bigfoot, whether it was a Gugway or whatever it was. But so I had two pistols. I had a 10 millimeter and a 44 Magnum on there. I pulled those two pistols out like Doc Holliday, and I backed up that hill to try to keep my eyes on where this guy was. And then after that right there, then he went back up the hill, and I could hear him running away, and then I didn't have any more. But man, that startled me, because I could never find him. You kind of want to lay eyes on there. You can kind of interpret, their mood sometimes by seeing how they are. That's how we get most of our Bigfoot classification, actually, just by, the eyeball sightings, eyewitness sightings, something like that, because we don't have as much DNA as we all wish we had. But when you got people, they're good old average people that you go to church with, that you meet at the grocery store, that deliver your mail, and these people are telling you something, their character, they're not pulling your leg. But that right there was really scary because I couldn't lay eyes on him. But I have one day that got after my dog and I down there, and then my black pit bull, and I went down there the day before. We found a great track to go down there and cast. But it was so hot, like it has been this year in Texas, that the dam around the foot had actually just shrunk. So all you could do, I didn't have a belt or anything else on to put around it to make it to where I could actually cast the track. So when I went down there, I had my guns and everything else like that, and I had my dog with me. Almost as soon as I got out, the thing was up on the hill, and it's like, I'm sure it's the same one that left the footprint. And he screamed, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, like I said, I had a black pit bull, and she was protective and she was loving, and she wasn't gonna let nothing happen to me. But I think she expected the same thing out of me, which is what she was going to get. And so we walked down there, and you could tell when she was running back and forth across the road doing the sniff, and then she'd stop and throw that tail up over her back, And so it was scary for me because I knew she was going to try to protect me. But then I did, I had enough firepower there. He was not going to go home unscathed. That's what it took. And so I got down there where the track was, saw it, and then started coming back, and he screamed again. But whenever I was on the way back there, got back to where my truck was, he would come down the hill probably 30 or 40 yards, and was, instead of being straight behind my truck, he was kind of to the left. I'm like, oh crap. He's done come down here. So when I did that, I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, man, you got a fob here on the end of your keys here for your truck. So I took and I hit. Thank you so much, Maggie. I appreciate that. I hit that fob on the alarm button, and that horn starts, and I think that threw him a curve, but when that time, then all of a sudden my pit bows up like, well, hey, if he's going to do this, and I'm going to do the same thing. So anyway, it kind of threw him a curve. I got back to my vehicle, unlocked it, and Tippy, my pet, jumped from the ground all the way across my seat and the console in one jump and landed in her seat. And she went down and she just started trembling. I'm like, oh man, you need to get out of here. So I jumped in right quick. Thank goodness, didn't have any kind of encounter after that with him. Called my son, who was in dental school at the time. He goes, Dad, don't get my dog killed. I said, he's going to kill me first. And, that sounds like bravado, but it's not. I couldn't live myself if I was there in the cause of one of my dogs getting killed. But then the one that was really scary, like I said, is when my family was with me there. And it was on Easter Sunday, 2014. Reese is there home from dental school. My wife is next to me. We actually showcased this on the show called These Woods Are Haunted on the Travel Channel. But what they didn't tell on that show was my wife was right there with me. And so this thing decides that he's going to come in, and I'm either going to be his boyfriend, I'm going to be her, or be her boyfriend. Cindy's going to be his girlfriend, or he's going to make meals out of all of us, because he starts trying to come in on us. And man, he just woo like that. And I said, there he is, Cindy. She goes, that sounds like an owl. I said, that's an owl. He weighs better than 200 pounds. I said, that's a Bigfoot. And I knew it was a Bigfoot. And so there for a little while, you can hear him. They try to, when you're out there like that, especially with a female being out there, they try to sneak up on you. They try to get close to see, so they can, kind of recognize what you are, kind of determine what your position is, what your attitude is, whether you're going to kill somebody or whether you're just there in the woods or whatever. But this right here, he was not a happy camper. And he had ulterior motives for sure. And here's the scary part. I didn't know it till afterwards, but he had another with him that I didn't see or know was there until he finally took off running. But anyway, so he sits there and he starts trying to sneak up on us. And so I tell Cindy, I said, there he is right there. She goes, where? And I said, you got to be quiet, So sure enough, he starts walking back, comes in there. Pretty soon he decides he's going to try to intimidate me. And he's over there, you can hear him kind of posturing a little bit and just doing the huff what they do. And they stomp. Well, they'll stomp like a daggone mad mule. And so he stomps. So I sit there and say, there he is, Cindy. I said, he's standing right. Where? I said, he's right over here. Just be quiet. So sure enough, there, he starts moving around again. For whatever reason I had, it was pretty stupid. But I decided I was going to do a whoop call. It's like, whoop, whoop, like that. And when I did, I said the wrong thing. And that's the thing about doing calls, man. Calls work just like they do with all the other animals, but you just don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Yes,
I was going to ask you really quickly. I've heard about I've seen people, I've seen videos, talk to people where they'll make up some call from their own vocalization. They'll broadcast in the woods, and they might have heard Sierra sounds from Ron Moorhead. Right. They might have heard from this, that, or the other, and they try to come up with their own Bigfoot calls. They record them, they blast them in the forest. Well, my question is, why in the hell do you know what you're saying? You could be putting off a threatening call, right? You could be putting up a mating call, which certainly we don't want to experience.
No, I certainly don't.
So I mean, these people are kind of a little loco in a sense. If I would never try to speak gibberish, I don't even like thinking about, different voices, watching like these demonic shows. I want to conjure up a devil. So you don't know what you're doing out there.
And you're right. The thing is, I have what's called me and Stephen call it making a phone call. Just as soon as we get there, we'll do like a bar. We got a lot of barred owls around here, so we'll do like a like that. But we have a plastic megaphone about this long, and it takes away the artificial sound from your voice, and it takes away the mechanical sound like you have a megaphone. And if they're there, most of the time they're going to answer. Of course, there's the barred owl there; they're going to answer. But then pretty soon you'll hear that one individual like that. Well, then that's generally when you know that you've got a Bigfoot that's interested. And then you keep listening, and you can hear them coming to walking to the edge of the woods, and they're sitting there looking at you. But you don't know what you're saying. That's the scary thing about it. But like I said, that's just a locator call. I don't try to do. I don't try to do the Indian love call. I don't try to do the baby calls. You heard people say they sound like gibberish. Well, they do. Or they sound like one of these old Chinese movies, these kung fu movies where you sit there and but if you slow it down, according to one of the real great linguists that we have here, it has a whole different language to its own. So I don't try to do that, try to make it that mimic to where, like say, where I'm saying, yeah, come and get it, big boy or big girl, Of course, if it's a female Bigfoot, I'll turn my wife loose on her. She'll whoop that thing and it'll go back to the woods. No, she wouldn't either. She'd say, hey, my insurance money made up. No, she wouldn't.
And I hear you. Yeah, there's a question. I always try to think of new things to ask you because I know we've exhausted them. But then again, we have new people all the time.
Sure.
But I never asked you this. Are there First Nations or indigenous people out in where you live? Or where you research? So let me ask you, if you've come across any, I don't know if you ever haven't, do they view Bigfoot as more of a spiritual protector of the forest, something perhaps not flesh and blood? I'm not asking you the flesh and blood versus physical creature, but do they perceive Bigfoot as a spiritual entity versus maybe the a physical presence or physical being? And
Well,
how,
truly, most of the ones, Rob, that I know, they do view it with some kind of, I'll put say this one, a spiritual reverence to it, that it has a
Mhm.
different kind of dimension. It's not just truly flesh and blood, and as far as that goes, they do believe that it has that other dimension. It's a different animal. It's been something that their peoples have looked to for years. They don't deny it. They do not deny their existence like
Mhm.
what we white people do. I mean, that's just, they don't do it because they know. And you look up there on Wikipedia, or you look up there on Google, and you'll see how many different names there are for Bigfoot,
Yeah.
but that are based on each individual tribe. And these tribes didn't get along with each other. They ransacked each other. They sold each other into slavery, those kind of things. So it wasn't like they're all getting together. Here, let's put together this hoax and say that there's actually a Bigfoot. No, they weren't doing that right there. And so it wasn't happening. And so with that right there, they each had their own name for Bigfoot. Even up there in Alaska where Daniel lives, I got to go up there to Denali National Forest and talk to one of the forest rangers up there, a lady who was I think it's Tlingit, I think is the way they say that, but talked to her. And I asked her, I said, do you ever get any reports of Bigfoot? Boy, she stopped what she was doing. She folded her hands, she bowed her head, and she goes, my people say I'm not supposed to talk about the hairy man. With that kind of reverence, man, head bowed. And I
yeah,
said, ma'am, I'm not going to make fun of you. I said, I've got
no,
them where I
right.
live. I said, and I live 4,400 miles from you. And I said, I have the same reverence. I said, that's the best, whatever you want to call it, creature, being, whatever it is, that you can have the most respect for. And so she finally
Mhm.
told me a few stories about when she was a little girl. Said, said whenever I was a little girl, said we would hear them coming down out of the mountains doing their scream. And said all the ladies and the men, they would get the wives and children together, and they would put them in their shelters and things like that. And the men would gather around, and then they would try to protect everybody until they went back up their way. And so I said, well, man, would you just let me just ask you the $20,000 question. I said, so you're saying for sure that Bigfoot up here in Alaska is real? I knew it was, and I didn't doubt a word she said. I just wanted to hear it verbatim. And boy, she stops and she goes, I don't just believe because of what my mother and my grandmother told me. Man, hey,
Wow, wow,
that's when you hear something other like that, man, that was a
Mhm.
soul shaking remark right there. It's
yeah,
Yeah.
solid as stone. And for her to say that, and with the reverence that she had, and I'm like, oh man, this is great.
Sure.
Because they do. So again, like I said, they're found basically when I say everywhere, basically every state. They're found in many of the other countries. A version of those, or of Bigfoot, is found in many of the other countries that they have with their own different names. And again, there's not just one species, and we don't know exactly how many there are. But like I said, we're trying to learn, and that's what your show's about. And that's what Duke's show's about.
yeah,
Daniel's show about up there, Cryptid Wilderness Research. Down here with me and Stephen, the same thing. We're trying to find out more about it so people can know, hey, they're there, be prepared, but they're not everything that we don't understand as people are monsters. They may look scary, and they can, flip you like a daggum tiddlywinks digit, but still, they're they're just, it's not that way, man. The ones I've seen mothers there. I've seen mother Bigfoot there. They have her babies, and man, they're just sitting there. They're as proud of their babies as we are of ours,
yeah,
and they sit there and they look at you, then they amble off. My wife got a picture of right after Steve and I got that picture of Brownie. I told y'all about that big 9-foot male keeps jumping across the trail. And so I had turned the camera a little bit so I'd catch him right wherever he was landing. So sure enough, I did, but he was already on his way down the hill. But Cindy comes back the next week. She takes her real nice camera that she's got, and she goes down to the one tree where he was coming across there. I see her raised up to her face. She just takes one picture, and then she comes back. Me and Steven get everything done, load up our game cameras. We leave. We get probably 30 miles from where ground zero is. And she goes, what is this? And so I stopped, because, man, I'm like, yeah, I know. I just knew he was going to get something there. I thought maybe it might be Brownie's what I thought, but it wasn't Brownie. It was a mama baby with two babies there. And I just kind of laughed. I said, well, you want good news? You want better news? And she goes, give me the good news. I said, well, you got a mama Bigfoot there. And she goes, well, how do you know that's a mama Bigfoot? I said, that's the better news. I said, she's got a baby there at each knee, and she does. And y'all seen the picture, and then you've heard Cindy, tell the story right there. And she actually sit there, and that mama was sitting there looking at her, just, big as Dallas. And Stephen and I were running cameras. And so that was a very, very cool event right there, because, you realize they're interested in you. She didn't show any sense of aggression. or anything else like that. And for her to have her 2 babies there and be willing to with a risk, put them right there. Cause I was armed, I had a rifle with me, but it's like she knew, he ain't going to shoot you, man. He's just, and he brings you Snickers bars. That's why you gained 20 pounds from last year, and 3 inches on your feet,
That's awesome.
Right. Well,
I'm gonna leave you with Christopher for just 2 seconds. I gotta do something really quick, but Krista always. That's why she's my co-host. She's the best. I'll be back in a minute.
Hey, man, you left in good hands, buddy. Go right ahead.
So, maybe the reason why the female showed Cindy the baby, it was like a mom to mom type thing.
Well, I was hoping to send y'all this video, but I wasn't able to find who had the rights to it to send it to you. But there's a video of a gorilla there. I think it's the Detroit Zoo. I think her name was Kiki. Mm-hmm. And so this woman is sitting there, and she's got a baby, and there's this gorilla looking at her through this plexiglass. And so the mama's sitting there fawning over her baby and everything else like this. All of a sudden, the gorilla you can see the look on the gorilla's eyes. All of a sudden, the eyes light up. The gorilla takes off running back to the end of the enclosure back there. And she comes back, and in one hand, she got a baby gorilla right there. And she runs up, and and I will send it to you one way or another. I don't know if we can broadcast it without infringing on somebody's rights. I don't do that either. Much make some good TV sometimes, but I'll send that to you when we get through. And whenever we do, you'll see it. Yeah. And so she's got that baby, and she stretches him out first like Batman. I'm like, oh gosh, she's gonna pull him in too. But she does, and she is so excited. And so she kisses her baby, and her and this mama, no joke. Just like you said, they have a moment. They recognize, hey, we're both mothers. This is your child. Yeah. This is my child. And when I send this to you, you're going to flip. And I'll send it. I'll send it to anybody through. I can do it through Facebook Messenger. I just can't broadcast it until I get permission from this person who does it. But when you see that, you're going to realize these stories y'all heard me say sometimes. Yeah, they do that. And for whatever it is, Cindy has that I call it Ellie Mae syndrome. Most animals love her. That's why we're doing dog rescue.
Right.
And so they tend to recognize that. And so with that Ellie Mae syndrome,
you talked earlier about your aura. You and Cindy both have a good aura, and that does reflect not only on people, but as you said, animals or Bigfoot, whatever. So yeah, I believe that.
At UPS 35 years, I got bit one time. That was on the first day I was as a driver, and this dog was crazy. Like I said, I told people before Jesus walked down the street, he'd chase him down the street and try to bite him too, because that dog was just nuts. But after that, I never got bit by another dog, just because of the aura that I put out. And
I would agree.
And it was really funny because, like I said, the people would say, "Well, how do you do this?" I said, "What?" How do you get up here? This dog hates everybody. How do you come up here and on the porch he's wagging his tail? Well, maybe he sees my legs as a couple of chicken bones. I don't know, but never had any trouble. And I think it has to do with the aura that you're putting out. You're not going to hurt them. You want what's best for them. And I've even had to stand up to some people who had dogs that were abusing those dogs and tell them, hey, please don't do that in front of me. If you're going to do it, please don't do it at all. But if you're going to do it, don't do it in front of me. I said, because I don't take well to that kind of stuff, and they're not trying to be bad. I'm the most aggressive person you're going to find as a rule. But on something like that, it really hurt my feelings to see an animal that loves you. You are their whole world. And to see somebody abusing one of their animals like that. No, I can't deal with that.
Yep, I agree.
With all the experiences you've had in the field, and of course you've come across other people's experiences, you have other researcher friends, and I'm sure that you watch other shows and you read, and you're a boots on the ground guy, but I know you do a lot of reading. What's and it really doesn't have to be related to what you've personally seen in the field, Will, at all. Do you tend to think that Bigfoot is just a spiritual ancient person? Do you think it's flesh and blood, or do you think that there's a combination of everything? I personally think it's a combination of the above. That's just been doing this for so long.
Yeah, I think it can be a combination of the above. So far, the only thing I can speak to y'all on with an educated background is the fact that what I've experienced, and it's all been, quote, flesh and blood so far. But when I first started this stuff, like I said, I've been a Bible believer all my life. I'm just turned 65 years old. Been a Christian since I was 13, and I didn't believe in some of this mess. Then all of a sudden, when me and Stephen are out there and we're running our game camera cards, and you pull the camera up and there's something looking at you that you don't know what it is, quite startling. And and I believe with all my heart, there is a spiritual universe out there. We have a spirit as far as that goes. Whenever when a person dies, they've actually had persons on scales. I think it's like 1.7 or 3.7 grams that the human body loses. I have no problem with that. I believe that with all my heart. Sure. And if that's what other people want to believe, but so far it hasn't appeared to me like that. So I just kind of, but what I'm getting on doggone cameras, folks, I got some stuff on there that, like I said, it scares me to death. I don't know and they've got long, gnarly teeth. And
there was a question about that. Somebody had asked, well, since you brought that up, Sunny 11 says, Will, have you seen Bigfoot show teeth when growling? There you go. You just answered.
Yes, I have. I've got the one picture there, Sonny, where I actually have Bigfoot biting my camera, and you can see in the big mouth open, and there he is. You've got all the teeth right there, the bottom teeth right there, and you got the four right here. Then you got a space, and then you got the little canine that's just a little bit longer, and that space is called the primate space for whatever reason. Not saying it's a primate, not saying it's but my son's a dentist and he let me know the technical term for it. I also got another picture there where the camera's inside Bigfoot's mouth and you're looking out and you're looking through some doggone teeth that are shaped like little sharp mountains there. And there's a Bigfoot in the background, but you see these teeth, and every one of these teeth are canine teeth. And so like I said, I've gotten that picture as well. I've got another picture. A friend of mine named Michael Waldy. Michael got a picture up in Oklahoma. There was about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 with the baby up there in the mouth of a cave. And so they're all sitting there looking at Michael. Michael doesn't even know they're there. Now, to Michael's credit, he's got a pretty girl with him. So I know I'd probably be more interested in a pretty girl than I would be in a Bigfoot if I was a young single man like he is, and a handsome guy like that. But I'm not. But he got this picture, and sure enough, Mary Boland, a young lady, we call her Bigfoot Mary, and she had a picture, and she said, "Well, look at this." She said, "I know there's Bigfoot in there. I see hair." And I said, "Well, what about this hand that's sticking up out of the top of the structure? There's a structure up there." She goes, "What hand?" I said, "Look at the very top of the structure." Well, she looks at it, and so we're able to trace the arm down, and we get to see it. Sure enough, there's a picture of a Bigfoot actually doing this to Michael whenever he's actually having it. Yeah, I mean, it's a good picture too. And so I've had Bigfoot, from what I've seen, bare their teeth. I think sometimes they have, you don't get to see that very often, but like I said, but especially in my game cameras, they don't mind when you get a picture of a Bigfoot, and I hide my game cameras in brush. And whenever I do that, and you get a picture of a Bigfoot, they get startled, and sometimes they get really mad. And the next thing you'll see fingers going in there to get your camera, or then you'll see a face doing like that right there. Then the next thing you know, your daggum camera's tossed through the woods, and then you've got to spend a couple hours trying to find it. So they tend to bare their teeth, and that is a sign, like it is with dogs and everything, a sign of aggression. It's not a sign of, "Hey, I'm glad to see you." No, it's generally tends to be a sign of you're maybe pushing your envelope a little bit too far there.
In regards to that, I started asking this question every once in a while. We hear stories. There are a lot of people say, "Hey, Bigfoot's the friendly forest giant" and stuff. Now, I'll qualify that by saying I don't think Bigfoot's evil. Okay, I don't think it's a thing that's out to seek and hunt humans. I don't believe that. I believe, much like human beings, however, that there are good Bigfoot, much like there's good and bad humans. So I think that there's a mix, just like in humanity. But I got to ask you this question. When people say things, "Hey, Rob, I would trust Bigfoot with my life." Well, okay. And then I ask them this question. And Will, I don't know if you have any grandkids, but I'm going to ask you this. Would you leave your grandkids, if you have any, or your son when he was younger, would you leave him in your backyard and now watch over him when there's Bigfoot roaming your property?
Not as a rule, for sure. Like the story I told you about the gorilla there. Well, then there's also that story there that when my wife and my son and I are down in the woods, and this Bigfoot charges, and he's coming to get one of the 3 of us right there. And I have a pistol on the spotlight, and I hit him with that spotlight, and he goes down on all fours, runs away a little bit, stands back up, runs over probably 30, 40 yards away, jumps up in a tree, and then you can hear him over there kind of doing that stuff like that. Then he jumps down out of the tree, and then you hear his buddy over here, ruh, 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 and then you don't hear nothing. And my wife goes, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "What?" And she goes, "That's it. Nothing. I don't hear anything." Well, when you have that right there, you realize, just like you said with people, there's all kinds, even leaving your kids with a babysitter sometimes. But no, I would not leave my any of my children, baby children, with a wild anything, with a wild person, with
Right.
whatever you want to classify Bigfoot is. I wouldn't do that, but I don't think that's prudent as a parent. Because look how many people who have dogs, and all of a sudden the dogs end up turning on the child for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Dogs react aggressively to direct eye-to-eye contact. Well, where's the kid's eyes right there whenever they're standing up? They're right there at the same as where most dogs. And so that tends to trigger something. That's their natural reaction. It doesn't mean they're bad or vicious, but it triggers that reaction. Once they get started, then that's the hard part, right? And we read those stories, a couple of times a year, which is just sad and so sad and disheartening. But hey, don't, I wouldn't leave my kids out there. I know there was a story down here in Texas where they had a snake in a terrarium in there in one of the high schools down here. All the kids could pick it up and everything. They thought it was a hog-nosed snake. And so they pick it up and everything. Well, finally, one day this kid picked it up and it was nice and warm, temperature just right, and that snake bit the kid. Well, the teacher swore to the end that this was a what's called a hog-nosed snake, or a spread natter is what they're called down here. Right. It wasn't a hog. It was a small cottonmouth. And so they went through a good lawsuit on something other like that. So again, even though that snake had been handled a jillion times, another guy down here, old Jackie, I can't remember his last name now, but he did a show in Little Rock there, snake handling all the rattlesnakes. And I got up there and he was getting there and he was laying in some of these sleeping bags there. Jackie Bibby, I think of Jackie Bibby. And so he's got this hook and he's pulling these snakes into his sleeping bag with him. I told my wife, I said, I can tell you which one he's going to pick next because he's not rattling. Well, sure enough, these snakes were over there and they were very dormant. And so one day there, about 2 days after she and I leave the convention center there at Little Rock, all of a sudden open up the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. And there's the storyline where Jackie Bibby had gotten bit by a 5-foot rattlesnake. Well, this is a snake he'd handled a jillion times, and I'm sure it was one he put in there. But, whenever they still have their own nature, and you can't trust that nature. And so I wouldn't do it. Like I said, I've been very fortunate, but I have had the accounts there, or the occasions there where the Bigfoot has gotten semi-aggressive with me. And I don't want that. I don't want it for it as well as my own people, because, which of us as a parent would not tend to defend our families or something like that. No, it's not right. And no, it has a tragic end, but that's not like they say out in some of these states. Oh, well, that's just an inherent risk. No, it's not. You go out there. Sometimes it just happens that way, and I wouldn't do that. So again, let me qualify with that. But I will not shoot one just for the heck. And I've had a chance to shoot one, folks. I mean, that's just the honest truth. I've had several chances to shoot Bigfoot, and I wouldn't do it. And if you see the way, like the mama baby we was talking about a while ago, if you see the way these mama Bigfoot are around their own quote children, unquote, you realize, hey, this is a different species. They're real high up on that intellect level. Yeah. And the fact that they respect me enough to not come kill me. I guarantee you we could get in a wrestling match and Bigfoot's gonna beat me every time, regardless. And so it has the advantage every single time. And so, but the fact that it doesn't charge me or anything like that, I'm gonna try to do have the same kind of respect. But respect this thing also as having a wild nature, not necessarily being a wild animal, but having a wild nature.
I know that your passion is Bigfoot, and for those coming on in, Will, people ask where you live, and I'm not giving your address. Fouke, Arkansas, that area, the Fouke Monster, and you're a Bigfoot man. You've been a Bigfoot man your whole life. But I will ask you this, and the ever popular dog man.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, certainly, have you come across anything in your research, your hiking, or whatever you want to call it? Have you come across something that you thought was perhaps a dog man?
Oh yeah, that picture that me and Stephen got, that Stephen took with his cell phone there. It's actually leading 3 Bigfoot up a hill, but the dog man is in the lead. And the Bigfooter, there's not any kind of animosity. Yeah. But the cool thing about it is there's a baby dog man there with him. He runs and gets underneath a leaning log and sits there and watches the whole thing go through. But then back there along the edge of the tree line, there's a mama Bigfoot, and she's got, it looks like a juvie there with her, and she's actually shoving that juvie along the edge of that tree line to try to avoid, I guess, whatever she thinks is going to happen. So, but Dogman, I didn't talk about it for a long time, even though I'd heard some. I'd had some people tell me about it. I saw one time up there at DeQueen, Arkansas, up there around 9th Street, not too far from the lake. And then I saw what I'm sure is one right there around Wright Patman, down around Sims, Texas, one day. And so I just I didn't talk about it because Cindy asked me not to. She said, it's hard enough to defend you being a Bigfoot researcher and not just claw somebody's eyes out, and but if you start talking about Dogman, I don't know if I can do it. I said, Cindy, I promise you I won't until it becomes a burden on my heart, to where if I don't tell and somebody gets hurt, then it's going to be on me. And so that's exactly how it was. Even though I had some pictures already, even though I'd seen Dogman, but when we get that picture of Dogman with us walking up the hill there, that Stephen takes that picture, it's time to start telling people, But then also say they've never offered to hurt Stephen and I, and Stephen's a big man, and both together, he and I would make a formidable tag team wrestling, But like I said, we're not any kind of match for anything else like that. But so far they haven't offered to. Now they have howled at us, and boy, that howl, it's like if you've seen American Werewolf in London, that's enough to make you have a heart attack. If they want to kill you, all they got to do is howl about twice.
That's right.
I'm down. But it has, so far they haven't offered to hurt me, but they are a real creature. And there's more than one species. The one that me and Stephen got that picture of is probably Gus looks like about 7.5 feet tall. But he looks like a doggone hyena with a hunched over back. He's got the shorter ears, but gosh, he's just massive, and got that skinny tail and those skinny arms. But then some of the other ones that we got have got the tufts of hair on top of their heads and everything, and they got some really red eyes. Whereas Bigfoot, the Fouke Monster ruined that for everybody because they said the creature had red eyes. So all of a sudden, every Bigfoot you ever heard of had red eyes. We see a lot of Bigfoot with yellow eyes, green eyes, sometimes in red like that. But this Dogman had red eyes, boy. I mean, red eyes. And they were looking right through you. And that's what you hear with a lot of these other accounts. But I did. And finally, I told Cindy, I got to start talking about it. And I did. But I don't see that near as much as I do the Bigfoot that we see around here. Now, Land Between the Lakes up there between Kentucky and Tennessee, I think that's another story. Down there in the swamps of Louisiana, with what they call the Rougarou or the Honey Island swamp monster or anything. Honey Island was probably supposed to be like a Bigfoot creature, but down to the Rougarou or Loup-Garou, which means werewolf in French, then I think they have more, and I think it's more of a territorial thing. But it's something to always be careful of, for sure. Just like out there watching for snakes. Don't go out there, being stupid, rubbing steak scent on your body and expecting to have a good result. It's just not going to be that way.
Yeah, or don't roll around in a vat of peanut butter either. As someone earlier suggested in the show, whatever that was about, I don't know.
Well, I tell you what, now Bigfoot has an affinity for peanut butter.
I know.
We know it. And Duke's got a picture of one there, and Keith Crabtree was with him up there at Montana, and you see finger marks reaching into the doggone jar of the peanut butter, and some big old fingers too, man. But they've got that. But as far as me, I'm not smoothing myself in peanut butter for anybody or anything.
Hell no. I mean,
me either.
I would never do that to begin with, and if I did, I'd probably be taking. They'd probably mistake me for what the Planter's peanut guy. The Bigfoot would crack me open, and there you go. My guts would spill out.
Exactly, or he would be bucktooth or snaggletooth, and then that's going to result in an accident I'm not going to appreciate.
Or maybe I'll have an encounter I don't want to experience. But
we have got truly, we got a trail of baby Snickers papers up there where we light up this Bigfoot to come in front of the cameras, and there's a trail we call it Snickers Trail, and there's just we don't even peel the doggone candy bars anymore. We just put them up there, we attach them on nails, and when you come back, they're gone. Pretty soon you find the whole trail of Snickers bars going through the woods, knowing what trail they're going. Pretty neat stuff. That's really funny. It's funny too because it's like they're the forest litter bugs, and the kids are no better.
Yeah, hey Chris, I know you've been tagging some questions, and I like to try to hit some of the people, if you don't mind, if you want to.
Yep. Okay, let me get to them here.
Okay, go ahead.
This is a question. Paranormal Heart Podcast asks, some people claim that Bigfoot won't stay where Dogman is. Do you think there's something to that?
Paranormal heart, I think probably there is in some locations there. I think sometimes there may be sometimes there's what's called a symbiotic relationship there where they tend to benefit one from the other. They have a mutual benefit, and so they stay together. But I think in some of these areas there, from what other people that I've talked to and things that I've read, and I've talked to a lot of people. I've probably interviewed now well over 300 people as far as for Bigfoot, Dogman, and stuff like that. But I think there also is a deal for dominance. Which one is the most dominant creature, and then that tends to whichever creature or being is the most dominant is going to be the one that's going to want to call the shots. And so I think that there's something to that. But where we are down here in Arkansas, we got about 5 or 6 really good places that we can go and research. And down here in Arkansas, so far it hasn't been an issue because that one, as I said, that dog man is walking up the hill. He's actually leading the Bigfoot, and they're not the least bit concerned about that dog man wherever he's taking them. Even though the mama is when she's shoving the one there along the tree line. So I don't think it's a hard and fast rule, but I think you get certain scenarios. There's going to be, I've got 8 dogs here at my house. My son has 6. They lived together for years, but all of a sudden you go home and there they are. They didn't have a fight, and it's basically a deal of dominance or food or something other like that right there. So that's my opinion on that. But I base that on good facts there from what we've seen. The fact that he's leading Bigfoot up and Bigfoot can kill a dog, man. Bigfoot is strong. My gosh, that picture I got of Blackie that I showed y'all. It's 5 foot wide shoulders, man. I mean, what kind of strength is that going to bring? So that's just my opinion, but I think that's an educated opinion. I think that's based on what I've experienced for 47 years.
No, it's a good point. Now you brought up the Bigfoot could kill a dog, man. You think in a fight he would win? I guess let's not.
Yep.
It's just so funny. I think it might have been Sarah and I, Krista, were talking a little bit about that. And I had said that I would go with Bigfoot if they had a fight over a dog man, simply because a Bigfoot can range anywhere from 600 to 1,200 pounds and just crush you like like the Incredible Hulk. But I did say this: if the dog man, though, is not an automatic loss because they're svelte, they got claws and fangs, and if they get around and on the back of his neck and just reach around and slit his throat, it'd be a fast victory.
That's right.
But the thing is, the Bigfoot's got to be aloof. Because listen, I've never seen a Bigfoot in action, but I'm guessing they're more agile than maybe I think, right?
Oh, hey man, they are so fast and so agile with the way that they move. And of course, Dogman is too. Dogman, when they walk, their feet tend to step up like that. The ones that I have seen, they don't walk like Bigfoot. Bigfoot looks like a cross country skier. But I've seen 3 Bigfoot that I promise you are over 1,000 pounds. Dogman, wow. I don't think they get that big for one thing. They may, if it is, that would be a different species that I'm familiar with. But they say they can get up to 7 foot tall. But the amount of massive strength that Bigfoot has is just it's going to be hard to overcome. And then is he going to end up unscathed? No, he's going to carry quite a few scratches with him all through the rest of his life, where hair's not going to grow,
Right.
But I think even if they're in Alaska where they got the grizzly bear, there's one man there. He said, I saw a grizzly bear out there on one of the peninsulas. All of a sudden it stands up, does this number right here, and it takes off running through the woods. And here comes Bigfoot, and virtually when they both stood up on the rear, the feet with the bear, he said, they're both the same size. He said, if this bear had such respect, he knew he didn't want to, tangle with that big. So that's my opinion. We may never see it, but that's just, there's not another creature like Bigfoot. When I saw, that's one reason I'm so wrapped up in what I do, because when you see Bigfoot, you realize you're looking at the king of the food chain.
Right.
He is something.
The thing that people don't realize is you can't process what you're seeing when you see one for the very first time. And probably if you've seen it 20 times, all I can tell you is this: what I saw, now my encounter was a lot different and much more weirder than the average. But to see something about 9 feet tall, had been 1,000 pounds, your mind can't process it fast enough.
That's right.
And you are in shock. You're questioning what you're looking at.
That's
am
right.
I dreaming? Where am I at? This can't be real. And your brain just can't catch up to what the image that's presented in front of you.
Well, you've heard me say there with my first encounter, the only thing I could liken that thing to was Andre the Giant, who was the wrestler then, who was
Yeah.
7'4" and 500 and something pounds. I actually got to see Andre the Giant there when I was a kid. I used to go to wrestling, man, and I was a pretty good sized man. His hand just dwarfed mine, like like this right here. If he could put a doggone mayonnaise lid ring on for a finger, and his hands were so big, and the bone structure and everything like that. But that was the only thing that I could. And like I said, he wasn't but 500 and something pounds, and
Right.
he had pretty much wild hair and everything else like that, But when you see Bigfoot and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, this is this is King Daddy right here. And so thank goodness they have most of them tend to have that demeanor where they're more interested just in observing you than they are in eating you, because you can't outrun them. Even that Gugway I saw, man. And then the one that night between Cindy and Reese and when we were down there, and he took off running back towards the river to go jump up in that tree. I guarantee you he was hitting 30 miles an hour through the brush. And it was like an elephant driving a bulldozer. That's because you could see him, because I had spotlight on and I couldn't hardly keep up with him. So he goes, "You're behind him, you're behind him, you're behind him." Well, I'm doing my best, but he just so incredible and so incredibly agile, very, very, I consider myself very, very fortunate to be one of the few that Bigfoot has maybe not necessarily let see him, but has hung around long enough that I got to have an encounter. I actually got to see 7 of them out in the field one day, and that was back on I think it was March 25th, about the year 2000, I think it was. And they were out there in the field, and I saw the first 2 7-footers walking down the edge of our field up there at Ground Zero. And they're walking down, and you can tell they're kin in some kind, because, like I said, one of them actually takes the other and just shoves him with his hand. And they turn around, they wrestle around a little bit, and then they keep walking on farther down the hill there. Well, then Stephen came up, and Stephen has got a big dually truck. He had to work that morning, and so whenever he comes up, you can see the dust coming off the gravel roads and stuff, and then the rumble of the engine, and they just meander right off into the woods right there. And so we start setting the cameras and stuff. And so before Stephen and I ever get out of the field where our vehicles are, all of a sudden my game camera that I have that goes through, goes to your service there with your cell phone. I don't want to use the name. I'm trying to find a way not to. But anyway, that went back to where your cell service was, and it sent pictures immediately back to your camera. And that thing starts going off. At Stephen, and of course, I done told Stephen what had gone on. And we look up there, and this thing is actually sending pictures of me to my phone of a Bigfoot over there on the ground with his hand like this, looking at the camera, eating one of the Snickers bars we had put out not less than 2 or 3 minutes ago. But the whole time there, after we leave, then, and I had seen all the Bigfoot there, and then saw some up there in the tree. Well, then the whole troop walks out there in the field where my cameras are. And so you get a picture of the whole troop. And I mean, boy, it's just incredible. Like I said, I've seen them right there where they're right there in a tree one time. There's about 7 of them in a tree. And they're all just kind of one of them actually looks like Patty. I'd never seen the Patty helmet face before, but it actually looks like Patty. So, but it's really an incredible thing to see like that. And they live in troops. Some, I think some may be family, some may be cast offs from other troops right there, but they're very close, and they look after each other.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And got a few more there, Chris. I know that Chris has walking pneumonia, and she's just a trooper tonight. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, she's top of the line, buddy.
Thank you. Danita says, curious for Krista and Will. I think it's towards you, Will. In my understanding, when Krista and Brandy go out, you are looking for seeking everything, which we do. Are you, Will, mostly only Bigfoot?
Just because I have so many Bigfoot around here, like I said, I live in what's called the Arklatex, the 4 states area. You've got Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi is not too far away over there. Right. And then also I tracked one day going down the Mississippi River in Tennessee up there, right there at Memphis, almost to the edge of the where the apartments were and stuff like that. And so it's not, but because we have so many, and it's such an interesting thing. So I do spend most of my time with that, but I'm there for whatever's there. Like I said, Dog Man, we do that right there, and we actually have what's called a devil monkey down here too. It's like about a 6 foot tall baboon looking job. It's got the snout there and everything else like that. I do most of them, but doing Bigfoot tends to take up most of my time, and then too that tends to sharpen my amount of knowledge, hopefully, with what I have about Bigfoot. And if I went to splitting it up, then I don't think I would be as effective in my research as what my research has been, for sure. But if it wants to show itself, like I said, we got what's called up there. Me and Stephen have a picture of what looks to be a thylacine. A thylacine is called a Tasmanian tiger, and all of a sudden we've got one that has walked right there in front of our camera. That's nice, Sunny 11. Krista, send the healing prayers. Hope you get to feeling better. That walking pneumonia ain't nothing to play with, girl. No, and that shows her dedication right there to what she's doing right here and in her belief system in being Bigfoot. And she's every bit of that. She's not faking it, buddy. I've met Krista and good class person. Didn't get to stay as much time with Rob as I wanted to because I got COVID, doggone it. And him and Tex both. But I
must tell you, Will, I need to come.
I'll tell you what you got to do, Rob. You got to fly back to St. Louis.
Yes.
And me, you, and Brandy road trip it back down to Will.
Yeah, no, I got to meet Will
for a few days. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do that.
Fouke. Yeah.
I got to do that.
Yeah, there are people. Somebody asked me, "Are there single Bigfoot?" Yes, they are. There's some of them that are just, like people. They don't necessarily have the need to socialize as much. But but that's what we thought a long time for animals like elephants. We didn't think they were social animals. They are dogs, and that's one reason we have the dogs that we have started rescuing, because we found out how social they were. We have one, then we got two, so it kind of have a playmate because we're gone a lot during the day, you don't having to work and things like that. But I think truly there are Bigfoot that just prefer to be alone. There's been several that down here at Sulphur River, especially in and around Fouke, that the Bigfoot have not appeared to have a mate or desire to be a mate or even been part of a troop there. But when I find that one's tracks, and some of them, you can tell by their feet which one it is. And some of them have got scars and stuff from stepping on glass or things like that. But you can see on some of those right there that where there doesn't appear to be another significant friend, companion, spouse, whatever you want to say about however they wanted to look at their stuff, that they tend to want to be loners. And so it does happen that way. They're very, very intriguing animal. And like I said, I'm very fortunate. And then too, I have people telling me that I trust that what all they have seen, and you compare that, because I didn't listen to Bigfoot podcasts for a long time. I didn't tell people after I did that first one, because after I had that first one, because I got such made fun of. But I wanted my research to be my own. But then I had all this stuff in my background, and all of a sudden I'm finding out the same thing these people are telling me is the same things I've experienced. Especially a guy named Chuck Slabs. Chuck invited me to be on his show there. Very first one called Oklahoma Chasing the Beast. He and I met, and I'd done seen probably about 7 or 8 that time. I think probably Chuck had too as well. And so, man, to find that you have the same kind of experiences, it really became, it solidified what you had studied all this time, which really was rewarding in that, because most everybody said, well, you're just crazy. No, like I said, I've got the pictures there, and this next book that I have is going to have more pictures to it. It's not just going to be, verbiage in there, but you've seen the pictures, but I'm going to have more pictures in there for people to look at and see, and hopefully they'll be able to look at and say, oh my gosh, they are real,
And for all you late comers, this is William Lunsford's first book, Searching for the Unfindable: My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. You can find that, Will, I guess, Amazon or wherever books are sold, I imagine. Is that correct?
Yep. Amazon has got the hardcover in there, and then we have what's called Lulu books, and then let's see what's the other one it's got there. Rats, I can't even think right now. But anyway, you can look it up and find it. You guys have got it. You can look up, or you can contact me on the Facebook Messenger.
In fact, Will, when you get an opportunity, send me if you got a dedicated link, give it to me and I'll put it in this show. So when people watch it, the show, because people watch this rest of the week and they can click on. So when you get a chance, send it over.
I appreciate y'all doing that, folks. I didn't write this book just to write a book and say, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money. You don't make but about $2 per book by the time you get it printed, and you're lucky if you get that. That's
Right.
not just me saying that. For a long time, like somebody like Lyle Blackburn, Lyle, who's an author, and I asked Lyle, I said, is it even worth it? He goes, sometimes it's not. You're not making much money at all doing this right here, and that's not your incentive for doing it. Your incentive is to, like I said, to let people know that Bigfoot is real, and you want to share what you've been able to experience like that.
Yeah, it's not the end game. It's not the end game for us. It's for educating and like I tell everybody all the time, I say this all the time. No, the shoes that I walked in personally were tragic, and
Yes,
I want to voice
Oh, wow.
everybody else's story.
So
Yeah.
I just tried to post the link, and it did all this in chat.
Oh, yeah,
I tried to post the link to Will's book, and that's what it did. So it's not going to work.
We're gonna
Amazon Kindle is the other one that is on Amazon.
Amazon
Kindle.
Kindle.
It was on Amazon, and that was
Basically, if I imagine everybody listening, if you type in William Lunsford,
that's how I did, and it comes right up.
They'll go in Amazon and go right to it.
Yep.
Like for my books, type in Bigfoot Mystery Rob, it goes to my books.
And what that will also give you, it'll get you a list of some of my podcasts. Not every one of them there. Some of them say, "Oh my gosh, I'm tired of hearing this guy. Let's get him off there." But it's got a lot of experience there, and that's the reason I want people to grow and to learn from my experiences. And I want to share those because it's a lot of fun. And especially when somebody calls me, like I tell you, I say, "Man, you're never gonna believe what happened. I heard you talking about this," and sure enough, this happened, and it's just like you said. Boy, it's really rewarding like that. And then sometimes it's like, man, it wasn't like you said it was, but the ones when it is that you've helped them have a sighting, when the one clue that you get maybe from a book or something like that helps somebody have their sighting, then that's really rewarding for me too, and that's a lot of why I do this right here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know it is. Is that all the questions, Chris? If now we can wind it on down.
I mean, there's a whole bunch. You'll never get them all tonight.
We'll put them on the regular site there. Like I said, I'll try to answer them if I can. There, like I said, I'm retired now, so I'm like a chicken in a bread pan, picking out dough kind of typer. This finger, this finger, this finger, this. But I will answer them. I promise you that. So.
If we missed your question tonight, leave a comment. Type it to Will, because I tell you what, Will, it'll take a couple days because he's got to settle in, and the chat doesn't show for like 24 hours from today. Right. He does answer all questions, and when I say that, I'm not just saying that, he does. So yeah, he goes on, he watches the show for about a week, and then he answers questions. And with that being said, Will, is there anything you would like to? Where can we find? Well, people are asking, where can we find Will? Do you have a channel? What's the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Actually, I don't have a channel. I'm just kind of a freelance. I have a deal there. I have a Facebook Messenger, and half the time my computer don't go through, but if it does, as soon as I get those messages, I'm always glad to talk with folks and stuff like that. So you can get me on Facebook Messenger, and so that's probably the easiest way. And that generally comes if my computer's working. We don't really have real good computer service down here, but our cell service. But if it's there, it goes through. I'll answer as soon as
Brandy knows all about that.
Yes. Oh man, I'd soon have 2 cans in a string.
Service.
Yeah, boy, it's just frustrating, that you have to go through, you pay all that money and you go through that and still you're not getting anything better. But like I said,
yeah, I get you. And I gotta say something briefly. This is why I love Krista. She always puts more things on my plate than I can handle. Every time a show or talking on the phone or texting, she always adds something to my plate. And the one thing she added today, and I love you for it, Krista. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bitching.
Don't sound like it.
Yes. No, I'm just kind of I'm being slyly funny, as you know how I am.
Okay.
This is another thing that I've got to do. Another thing from Krista, but I will say this. Me, Brandy, and Krista, I got to fly to Missouri. I got to drive to Arkansas and hang out with you, because I tell you what, that I'm moving up on the list, because that was a great idea, Krista.
Hey, man, it's fixed to start getting good here in Arkansas. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2017. It's just like this year. And so the Bigfoot tend to be following those same patterns. So they may be starting to move around in August. And if so, man, it's it's a great experience. There's a lot of them around here. Like I said, me and Stephen got quite a few areas we can go to. And folks, if you're looking for an area, like I said, get on there and look on some of those websites that you have there. Go to some of your state parks. Go to some of your boat ramps around some of these lakes around here. If there's water, there's going to be Bigfoot around there, and that'll kind of get your foot in the door. When you find your first track, I guarantee it's going to change your life. You know,
absolutely. And really quickly before we go, Gary Spike Sr., Paranormal Paul, T-Bone, and Maggie, thank you for either leaving a super chat or gifting Bigfoot Mr. Rob Pirates. Arr. So appreciated. Buy my book. Buy Will's book. My book. Book 2 is out. Bigfoot Mr. Rob. Type it in an Amazon browser. The link is pinned here. Thank you. And by the way, everybody, I'm going on Coast to Coast Radio AM at 3 in the morning Thursday with George Neri to promote my book. Most of you won't see it unless you pay, unless you know how to get a Coast to Coast AM on your AM dial. No. But that will be on, and that's behind a paywall. But the free thing will be coming out on YouTube. I'm excited about promoting the book on that.
You bet.
And I got a lot of work ahead of me to prepare for that because I don't want to blow that one. There'll be like 1 million people watch that show, so I'm excited about that. So that'd be awesome. Yeah. Subscribe if you're new to the Bonds and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Texas Front Porch, Monica's Paranormal, Duke Sullivan, World Bigfoot Radio or Central. Check out Duke Rumble. He reads a book. He reads passages from William's book and my book the other day on the Rumble. I think Duke already dropped the link, so go check that out.
That was a great show.
Will, man. It's always, you're the greatest, man. I really appreciate every time you come on. Always a fantastic show, bro.
I appreciate y'all, man. I feel like I'm in tall cotton getting to be around there with y'all. So I appreciate y'all so much.
Yeah.
And you know I do. You know, I try to verbalize that.
You're
times too.
You're almost like you're like
top of the line, man.
You're like a family member now, William. You really are. My big brother Will. My big brother.
I had somebody the other day say, "Yeah, you're like the old uncle that lives down in the attic."
You know, man. Oh shit.
That's awesome.
Yes, I swore. Sorry. NC-17. It's almost 11 o'clock. With that being said, thank you, Will. Thanks to all the super chats. Thanks for coming in, everybody, and those listening without being in the chat. Appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new. With that, for Krista, for William Lunsford, I am BMR. Until next time, have a great night.
Good night.